What is up, everybody? Mr. Purtis here. Welcome to the Age of Revolutions, which is part of 1750 to 1900, which is our fifth unit. This connects to the Enlightenment period, which was kind of the first part of this unit. This is the Age of Revolutions. We're going to talk today about the French Revolution causes. If you don't know where France is or you don't know much background on France, this is a map of Europe in around 1789. This is the Kingdom of France right here. It borders Spain and then a lot of little city-states around here, which we'll eventually get to in this time period of why it's that way and what happens to this, which would be modern-day Germany, also city-states down here, modern-day Italy. We have Britain to the north, which is France's most significant rival, as we talked about in the 1450 to 1750 period, trying to get into Asia and kind of competition in South Asia, specifically India, over goods. Also over here, just to kind of put this in perspective, this is the map of where the French colonies exist. Don't focus on the blue, just kind of look at the green here. So we have this colony up here in the Americas, which borders on the British colonies, which by 1789 have just recently received their independence from Great Britain. So there's a little competition here between the British and the French, which we saw in the last time period and into this time period with the French and Indian War. Also over here in India, we have a colony. And last but not least, we can't see it on the map here, but there's a colony right here, something like that. Yeah, that's it. Which is Haiti, which is France's most profitable colony. Over here, I just put this in purple because purple is the royal colors for the French family. And just as a reminder, during the previous time period, we talked about Louis XIV being an absolute monarch, called himself the Sun King and believed the world revolved around him, built the Palace of Versailles. Very, very wealthy individual. And some of his relatives, great-grandson specifically, is going to kind of come up in the picture today. So we have Kingdom of France, has colonial empire. We have an absolute monarchy, and that's kind of just setting the tone and the idea of what's going to go on here with the causes. That's just a little background. So there's really going to be four causes of this French Revolution. The first one is the Enlightenment, and everything that we talked about in the previous video and in class about the Enlightenment all connects. This idea of freedom, democracy, the natural rights of individuals, those concepts and ideas, freedom of speech, freedom of press, religious toleration is circulating through France in the 1780s and previously. And people in France are talking about this, especially upper class people and upper middle class people who are wealthy, who have the time to kind of sit down and talk about French politics, are going to be talking about these ideas and what's the best sort or type of government. So that's going to be around and existing. Also, the American Revolution happens in 1776. The Americans win in 1783. The French government helped the American colonists fight against the British. And actually, the French support is probably the turning point which allowed the American colonists to defeat the British. So the French are involved in this American Revolution. They support the American Revolution, not because the American Revolution is about freedom. They're not down with that at all if you're the French king. What you do support is hurting your enemy, which is Britain. So the French support the American Revolution. A lot of these French soldiers come back with these ideas of Enlightenment. Hey, they won. It worked there. And a lot of people in France, many people in France start saying, if it happened there with this upstart American colonists, who we kind of look down upon because we're the French and they're these backwoods American colonists, why can't it also happen to us? And people begin to question, because of the Enlightenment, absolute monarchy in France. And it's kind of ripe in France at this time for this, but it's not just this Enlightenment American Revolution that caused it. There are other factors that are going to take place. And another one is that we have an unequal social class in France. It is called the estate system because there are three specific estates in France or social classes in France. At the top is our first estate, which consists of the Roman Catholic clergy. So any member of the Roman Catholic Church who is in a administrative position, so we're talking priests, monsignors, bishops, cardinals, etc., is in the first estate. The first estate makes up less than 1% of the total population in France. Next, we have the second estate, and these would be the nobles. They consist of about 2% of the population, but they own about 20% of the land in France. So they're only 2% of the population. So the first estate's about 1%, second estate about 2%, and then the third estate makes up everybody else in France. All the other groups in France are part of this third estate. And the third estate includes a group called the bourgeoisie, which are wealthy merchants, usually, or they could be doctors, lawyers, important people, quote unquote, important people who make a significant amount of money. We have city workers. They're poorly paid, usually people who are cooks or dishwashers or servants in the city. And then lastly, we have peasants. And these peasants make up about 80% of the population. This system has been in place in France since feudal period. It is very feudal-like. We have nobles and the church and then everyone else. And that's our estate system. This first and second estate pay just about no taxes to anybody in the French government. The third estate pays roughly 50% of their income to taxes. So the tax situation here in France is unfair. And the third estate pays the vast majority, almost all of the taxes in France. It's also the way the land is separated is unfair. And at this time period in the world, land still equals power. And if 2% of the population here owns 20% of the land, that's definitely not a fair system. And these are kind of two political cartoons that are drawn to kind of show how this estate system is unfair. This guy down here who is in chains and looks very hungry is supposed to be the third estate. He is the worker. We have the first estate right here, the Catholic Church. We have the noble right here in the second estate, and this is supposed to be the king, King Louis XIV, and they are all riding on the back of the third estate, similar here, meaning that the third estate is providing all of the work for the rest of for the other two estates and the king to survive. So this system is unfair. Unfair social classes, huge reason for this revolution to happen. Number 3, in 1787 and 88, we have bad harvest in France. There are a lot of, to this day, people are still trying to figure out what caused it. There was a earthquake which led to some bad volcanic eruptions in the 1770s. So a lot of people think that those volcanic eruptions in 1770s and 1780s are going to impact Western Europe and lead to some bad harvest. Really, the problem in France is, even though most of Europe had switched to a potato-based diet, the French were a little stubborn and they still focused on grain. Grain is a little trickier to grow, and grain can often be caused by any weather issues, can really destroy grain crops as opposed to the potato. And France was really a holdout. Most of their diet consisted of bread. While if you went to Britain and Ireland, you have a lot of potatoes and potato-based diet. So because France is focused on grain, any weather issue is going to have a problem. And because of these volcanic eruptions, there's going to be bad harvest in 1787 and 1788, where there's a very, very cold autumn and a cool season, which leads to a poor harvest. Poor harvest means there's less food. Less food means prices go up, and with prices go up, people can't afford food. And hungry people get angry, or the word we're going to use in here is hangry. They're so angry, they're hangry. And hangry people are willing to do crazier things. This is a key to most all revolutions. Actually, 2 important keys. 1, unequal social classes, almost always a factor. And 2, when people are hungry, they rebel. Think about if you miss lunch or you miss dinner and what your mood gets like when you need to eat a Snickers, for example, to snap out of it. That's what people in France are feeling. They're angry, they're hangry because they're of these poor harvests. And last but not least, and I don't want to go too much into this one because we'll spend some time in class on this, we have 2 weak leaders who are married, who are the leaders of France during the French Revolution. And this is Louis XVI. He is the great-grandson of Louis XIV, who is the Sun King, the absolute monarch. And this is his wife, Marie Antoinette. She is not French. She's Austrian. Like many marriages during this time period, it is a marriage of political help or political assistance to try to form an alliance. So she's from Austria. He's from France. They are not going to do a very good job solving these problems that are going to exist in France, and the population of France kind of turns against them, which is more stories for class. So any questions, write them down. As always, I hope you learned something. Talk to you later.